Today, we're going to take a look at those internal patterns that kind of run our lives. But here's the twist. Instead of seeing them as flaws, we're going to see them as roadmaps. We'll be using a lens called traffic light processing to understand how these maps get drawn and, more importantly, how we can start paving some brand new roads for ourselves. You know that feeling, right? Something happens, and before you even know it, you're on autopilot. Same reaction, same thought, same feeling. It's almost like you're just a passenger watching yourself go down the same old looping road again and again.
But what if I told you that automatic response isn't a weakness? What if it's just your brain being incredibly efficient? It's a path you've traveled so many times that it's basically become a motorway. You don't even need a map anymore. It's simply the most well-worn road you've got.
And that brings us right to the core idea for this whole explainer, TLP, or traffic light processing. It's a metaphor that invites us to see our internal world as a map, one that's complete with roads, traffic lights, and, crucially, a driver. So what do we actually mean when we say pattern? We'll just think of it as a specific road running through your nervous system. The more you travel down it, the more practiced it gets, the more reinforced it becomes, until eventually, it just feels completely automatic. Okay, let's break this metaphor down a bit. The road itself, that's the learned neural pathway. The traffic light, that represents the state of your nervous system. You know, green for when you're feeling calm and connected, orange for when you're agitated or mobilized, and red for when you're feeling overwhelmed or just shut down. And the driver? Well, that's the most important part. That's you. That's your conscious awareness, your ability to choose. So you might be wondering, how did these internal roads get built in the first place? It's not random at all. They're actually paved using a few key ingredients that make them stronger and stronger over time.
It really comes down to three things. First up, simple repetition. The more you use a road, the wider and smoother it gets. Simple as that. Second, emotion. Big emotional events, whether they're good or bad, carve that road deeper and way faster. And third is prediction. Your brain loves to be efficient, so it uses your past journeys to guess what's coming next and preps the route for you.
You've probably heard this phrase before, and honestly, it just perfectly sums up the whole idea. Every single time you think a thought or do something, you're strengthening the connections that make it just a little bit easier to do it again. You're basically upgrading a bumpy dirt track into a multi-lane motorway. Okay, so if we're all just speeding down these automatic motorways, how on earth do we ever change direction? Well, that brings us to the most hopeful and important part of the entire map, the junction. This is that moment where choice actually becomes possible. And here's the real game changer. The key isn't to try and rebuild your entire internal map from scratch. I mean, that would be exhausting. The real power is in something much, much smaller. It's simply noticing the junction, that tiny moment right before you make the automatic turn. That little moment of noticing, that's a pause. And in that pause, something pretty incredible happens. The driver, your conscious awareness, gets back behind the wheel. You shift from being a passenger on some pre-programmed route to an active navigator who actually has a choice to make. This is exactly why the pause is everything. It can be as short as taking a single breath, but it creates this vital space between the trigger and your automatic action. And it's in that tiny little space that you find the power to choose a different path. All right, so you've paused at the junction, you've gotten the driver back in the seat. What's next? Now we get to talk about the practical side of things, how to intentionally start laying down a new path. First off, we have to be honest with ourselves. Choosing a new route, it feels weird. The old road is that familiar motorway. It's fast, it's effortless. The new path, it's more like a bumpy, overgrown track through a forest. It's slow, it feels awkward, and it needs your full attention. And you know what? That's completely and totally normal. So the process is pretty simple, even if it's not always easy. Step 1, pause at the junction. Interrupt that automatic response. Step 2, choose a different route. Intentionally pick a new thought or a new behavior. And step 3, the most important bit, repeat. Every single time you make that new choice, you're laying down a bit more gravel on that new path, making it stronger. And this is where you really see the payoff. With enough repetition, that bumpy gravel track starts to get smoother. Eventually, it becomes tarmac. And before you know it, this new road feels so familiar that it actually becomes the new automatic route, your brain's new preferred path. Which leads us to what is, I think, the most important takeaway from all of this. It's about separating who you are from the routes you've learned to travel. So let's just pull it all together. First, your patterns are your history. They are not your identity. Second, those old roads get weaker because you stop using them, not because you try to force them away. Pave a new road, and the old one just naturally fades. And third, when you start to see your life as a map, it allows you to become the strategist, choosing your next move without all the shame. Your personal roadmap, with all of its motorways and all of its bumpy tracks, it tells a really accurate story of where you've been, what you've learned, and what you've survived. It explains your history, but it does not decide your destination. You are the driver. You're the one holding the map, and at every single junction, you have the power to choose the road ahead. So the only question left is, where do you want to go next?